Moving ahead, moving on, we are on agenda item 5, the Finance Committee report. Chair Davis, are you ready?
Yes, item 5.2. The committee moves that the board approve R277-479 funding for charter school students with disabilities on IEP Draft 2 on second and final reading.
The motion is that the board approves R277-479 funding for charter school students with disabilities on an IEP Draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Sorry.
We have a question from Vice Chair Wood as you're pulling that.
I have a question regarding you selected E to incorporate into this rule. Is that accurate? And I'm wondering, my question is probably for Deputy Superintendent Jones. Is the legislature hoping to use some of this fund in all these things that we're doing legislatively with recommendations to cut? Are they hoping that to free up some of this funding based on our choice between, is this related to legislation at all, or I guess public education appropriations?
Scott, please.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. Vice Chair Wood, I don't have any confirmation of that, but there certainly is that opportunity that it could result in that, yes. The other consideration is that it is what it is. We caught it, we recognized it, so now we're trying to make it through that. The legislature may not may only go with a 3-year adjustment or two. That would remain to be seen. This the simultaneous or parallel process to this rule being done, there's likely going to be changes to the code and the formula as well. But then for me to say that I have evidence that it's to do what Vice Chair Wood described, I simply don't have that.
Thank you. Back to you, Member Bogus.
Sorry, I guess if we're just going to go to a vote, I have no questions.
We've got some other lights, but you're welcome to circle back.
No, there was just some discussion the other day, and apparently that's not coming to fruition. So if we're voting on E, I am happy to support whatever it is. Thank you.
Member Lear?
I have a question also, and I'm not sure what you mean by E, or what Member Bogus meant by E.
So some clarity. So there were some options that the Finance Committee went over.
Okay.
And for, if you haven't seen the meeting, we had 4 members involved, or can't recall. I mean, a lot has happened since then and now, but we did have only 4 members, and so there was kind of this split vote on D and E.
Okay.
And then in order to move it forward, one of the members said, you know what, let's get this before the full body. And so E was moved.
So to clarify, this is the E version of the options.
Yes, and the difference, and Scott, I don't know if you want to give, because I can give a rundown version, but can you give a rundown version between, let's just talk about D and E since that was the committee one. Is that okay, Chair Davis?
Make sure you come back to me because I have a second part.
Go ahead, Chair.
I don't know if are you asking for the difference between the two? And I should give a little bit of background too on our votes.
I felt like this was, for my purposes, I just was wondering what that reference was to. For my purposes, I don't necessarily need the background and I have a question that might have related to E, but doesn't.
So E gives 4 years for LEAs to kind of gear up and plan on this funding going away. And D gives 3 years. Originally, 2 of us had voted for E and 2 of us had voted for D. But we only had 4 members in our committee, and so we were at a stalemate, and I wanted to move something forward to the board. So I switched to the 4 years. And I'll vote for it today because that's what our committee voted put forward, but I will say I think 4 years is a long time for the LFA. I can hear the LFA in my brain. I think he's going to say, I think they're going to go for 3 years. But I think, and to a conversation I had earlier, I appreciated, Deputy Jones saying, the point is that we found our problem and we are trying to rectify it. And if there's a little bit of movement within those, when all is said and done, that's okay. At least we've taken a lot of time. And several of you came to our meeting on Monday where we spent, the whole meeting on this. So we really are trying to rectify the situation.
Remember, Lear, what's your question then?
Right. And just to the maybe what the comment you just made, is the meeting on Monday recorded? That
No.
you have, because I always have a conflict at that time. So I apologize if I could have learned about this. I wasn't able to, but I
Yeah, no.
can't do it at that time on
Yeah,
Monday.
no
So,
problem at all.
so my question is more to probably Deputy Superintendent Voorhees or someone else in special ed or someone like that. My question is, this seems to give sort of an advantage to charter schools in receiving funding for special education students. And it's a formula laid out to provide that.
May I,
And
Chair?
is
just
that
quickly?
inaccurate?
What this is we're kind of, we found a little problem in the formula in that we don't have in our formula, this is only for expansions. This is not for charter schools in general.
Okay.
It's only for expansions, and we have to go in a kind of a predictive way. But what happened was there wasn't a true up piece of the formula after the students actually got there to go back and true up the initial amount that was given. And so in some cases, in these cases, in your backup, there have been additional funds that have been flowing to these schools. So we're trying to fix that situation so that the funding is the way it is per student and should be for all districts and other charter schools.
And so I think in saying that, if I may, it's okay, Chair, to proceed. In saying that, I think you answered my question in that this would make it so that all LEAs are treated similarly. This does not give an advantage to expansions.
Yes, over time. Well, there
In any
has
way.
been an advantage, but
There
in
has
order
been.
to not create a fiscal cliff and say, oh, we needed this extra piece, all of that money is going away right now. We're trying to phase it in with a few years so that they don't hit a fiscal cliff and it's manageable, especially considering maintenance of operation and maintenance of effort and other legal parameters that these folks have to work within.
Then I understand, and it sounds like from your explanation, I would also support the 3-year transition as opposed to 4 years. So I don't know if,
And I may have said that wrong because on this scenario saying 3 and scenario D says 2, but that's in addition to the one we already approved. So
right.
just
I would
make it clear as
support
mud.
the shorter time period to make that, to work that out is what I'm saying. And I also I would maybe hope that and you can change these without board vote or whatever. I would maybe think that the title to this rule should be changed because it wasn't really clear that it was only for expansion charter schools. It sounds like it's for all charter schools, which is somewhat misleading given that there's 130 plus charters and probably 10-ish expansions. So it's a lot less money and a lot fewer students affected. With that, that's helpful. Thank you for that. And I didn't even have to bug Leah. So thank you.
Member Bogus?
Yes, thank you. I just want to be clear that, as I understand it, that when we're saying 3 years and 4 years, that includes the current year, the current fiscal, which isn't actually a year. Like, we can't expect all these people who have already published budgets and already this and already that. We can't really consider that a year. So we have to remember that when we're looking at these years, we really need to say -1. Did you track that with me? I'm seeing heads shaking. So I just want to be very clear that this is not into 2030, if that makes sense. This is, yeah? Yes, I'm asking if you are understanding what I am saying right there. Okay.
I understand you. Member Kelly.
The current motion is scenario E, right? That we move scenario E. I'm going to speak against. I voted in committee for scenario D. I do think that in this scenario, our staff, it's also a scenario that they recommended, and I think that in a year when we're asking people to make cuts and we're being asked to look at cuts, I think a scenario where someone has been overfunded and we're allowing them a time frame to get back into compliance and to get their numbers in order. I think 2 years is sufficient time. So I just wanted to speak to scenario D, speak against the current motion of scenario E.
Okay. Seeing no additional lights, are you, Vice Chair Bollinger? I know you put your hand on it, but let me restate the motion here. Okay, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd actually like to make an amendment to the current draft. And I will make my motion, and then if I get a second, I'll speak to it. Although I do need those numbers that were on that graph to make the amendment, because basically my amendment would be to go with option D, and maybe that can just be or scenario D, excuse me. Maybe if I just say scenario D, and then the wording would be fixed in the rule. Is that in order?
I think if we want option D, we just vote down the current, unless you're making a substitute motion. Is that what you want to do? So it's not an amendment. If you're saying I have a substitute motion, I want
Okay.
to.
Then yes, it would be a substitute.
And then we would need help because it doesn't say on this motion, it doesn't say option E, so it needs to be changed is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's my point, is that because it's a draft and not a scenario,
Oh, so
I would
you-
have to
I see.
amend the draft to match scenario
So
D.
an amendment would be in order. You're right. So I think this is going to take a couple minutes. Can we saunter for a few minutes? Because we need to open up the rule and get that done. And I think we're going to need Scott to help out with that, or staff.
You may want to make sure I have a second before.
Yeah, let's put this, well, because we don't have a motion yet, you've got to put the motion together, so I can't second anything. So we're going to saunter for 3 minutes. Thank you, board members. Let's get back to it. We appreciate staff helping during that time to get Vice Chair Bollinger help with the potential amendment. So Vice Chair Bollinger, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't know, did Deputy Superintendent Nui step out? She was writing my amendment for me. Do we have that to pull up? Okay, so my motion would be to amend draft 2, that the board incorporate scenario D.
So there is a motion that the board incorporate scenario D into draft 2. And there's a second from Member Kelly. Is that right? Was that you, Member Kelly? Vice Chair Bollinger, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I realize this is a hard thing. Special ed feels like it's always underfunded and will always be underfunded. And so I know this is very painful for all of the schools. I do think that there needs to be time with this adjustment. I'm concerned about the longer we wait, the more of a cliff it will feel like. I do believe that there is time to plan ahead. I also believe that with this change that we've had in land trust funding that's going to be increased, it's a good time to try to start shifting some of those things. So again, special ed funding, I wish we could feel like we could fully fund it to provide Cadillac services for all of our students. But I think the most fiscally responsible scenario, to Member Kelly's point, is that when we're making cuts in some areas and other schools are, what we say is overfunded, which is kind of ironic because special ed's never overfunded, but when we talk about being able to fund services for all students, I want to make sure that we're fair across the board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Earl.
I would speak against this. I think E is where we should land, and I understand that it's putting things out a little bit further. This error was not on the side of LEAs or that additional funding. That was something we had in our model. As soon as it was brought to our attention, we're addressing it. But what ends up happening, especially with the cuts this year, they're being cut not in just one spot, but in possibly others, and especially some of these smaller charters being able to figure out how it all impacts. I'm just speaking against this. I think E is the better direction for us to go moving forward. If we weren't cutting this year, it would be a whole different story. We could kind of balance things out, but we just don't know the impacts of other cuts. And I don't know of anybody that actually has Cadillac services, including these LEAs. So anyways, that's where I'm landing.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Yeah, I would just speak against the motion as well. I think we have to remember that, again, this current fiscal year is included in this model, and that it's just too fast. If you look at how these budgets prevail, you're not talking about just decreased, if you will, services. We're talking about reductions in force. We're talking about all sorts of things, and we're at a time when teacher contracts are being renewed and all sorts of things are happening. And I think D is irresponsible, in my opinion. And I think E is the better solution moving forward. Thank you.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just echo the statements of Chair Earl and Member Bogus. Primarily, look, they shouldn't have received the money. We need it back, and both of these proposals do that. But I'm more concerned about not the bigger charters, but the smaller ones who are going to have, I think, extreme difficulty in doing this. And that, this was a combination. It's not like they came in and took the money. Like, it was given to them. It was given to them by us, I think. So for us to go back and say, hey, we're partly on the side of this error. Now you're going to have to pay 100% of the consequences by losing this additional time. I just don't feel that that's equitable. So thank you, Chair.
Member Longacre.
Yeah, can we just get clarification? Is this year included in the amount of time? I'm just hearing yes and no's.
Yeah, on the chart it shows FY26, which is this year, and so that is that's the first on the chart. That FY26 is the first. No, we are in FY26 right now. Is that correct, Scott? Yes, but there's no change, right? But the change will happen abruptly. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Next we have Member Booth.
Thank you, Chair. A number of us were here on Monday and listened to an hour's worth of very valuable information. As we listen to PEA and as we deliberate for hours and hours of how we are making additional cuts or suggestions that we're making for additional cuts and reductions in funding, I have felt for the students and the parents and the educators who have to provide for these students, and after listening as carefully as I can, because we do not know how many other reductions are really going to come into play, and how those reductions across 70 plus different programs are going to impact how we provide education for our students. I feel much more comfortable with E, though I certainly resonate with Member Bollinger's suggestion that we need to be responsible, we need to get this done. But I just am fearful that it's going to impact in a very detrimental way when you combine that with all of the other cuts that somehow they're going to have to be robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I just want to go on the record of saying that they'll do whatever they need to do at the legislative level, but I would want to be on the record as saying we are thinking of students first, and for these students in these particularly small charter schools, one more year is going to make that transition, bringing everything into compliance, much better for the students, since we have so many unknowns regarding other diminished resources. Thank you.
Member Davis, or Chair Davis.
I'm just ready for the next one. Whenever you're ready.
All right, we'll get there. Member Lear.
My comment is a question, and I wonder where this forgiveness comes from. Where do these funds come from? We're not going to get new funds. So who loses in order to give the benefit to this group of students? Is that a Scott question?
Yeah, his light lit
Well,
up, so.
Well, so maybe this is an opportunity through you, Chair, to remind schools that are expanding that I love them. So it's not, what we're trying to do here is correct overfunding for students that don't exist. That's what the formula had made it so we weren't truing up when the actual count came in. So in a way, it's not that we're taking money away from students. We're actually reducing money that it was going towards students that didn't exist. So it's not like a reduction for students that exist, right? It's just to make sure that we're truing up like we do after the October 1 counts. This formula didn't allow us to do that similar process where if the student doesn't exist, we make that adjustment. So the formula, what we're proposing here, is rather than just, ripping the Band-Aid off and taking that money that they were using. So right, wrong, or indifferent to that aspect, we're just stepping down the amount of funding that goes for really students that never materialized. Because the amounts we were giving were based on the estimate of the charter schools expansion for kids. So then subsequent reports show that they didn't actually expand by that many kids or those students that needed those special needs. So rather than just completely stopping, we're stepping down or gradually stepping down funding for students that does it. Now, if for some reason there's an increase in the students, we would adjust accordingly, right? But that, as you all know, we're in a decline. Yes, charter schools have increased, but not all charter schools have increased. And then the expansions are based on estimates of what they are, they're assuming how many students will come that next year.
And students with disabilities too.
So, well, yes, specific to students with special needs, yes. And so rather than, we're trying to, it's a correction, basically. It's a correction, but a gradual correction so that we're not completely removing that funding all at once.
And with respect to Scott, I'm asking a much simpler question. If the money doesn't go to these non-students, then it will be going to all students with disabilities generally. Is that right?
It could, yes. I mean, it's restricted money, so if it was being used, then it had. However, then too, we also are in the space of the complicated aspect of charter schools were allowed to unrestrict 35% of restricted money, so they very well could have done that with this money. So, yes. So yes, that money is due, but there's also that ability of them to do this. So, I mean, we'd have to sort that all out. But that's really what we're trying to do is correct it all, right? We're trying to ensure that we are, for lack of a better term, truing things up, making sure that funding is not going towards a student that doesn't exist, but, and because that's how we fund. We fund on a per student basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for
got
the
you. No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure it is going to students generally with disabilities.
Yes, with other
Understanding-
considerations. Yes,
Understanding it went to other places probably also, and we can't do anything about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Chair Davis, I'm confused. Are you for this? Or are you in the queue to chair again? Okay.
I'm going to, just as you're kind of making your final decisions, I'm going to make one argument for D and one argument for E. You can weigh all things in the balance. The argument for D is just don't be confused about the chart here, because D says 2 years, but that does not include the year that we have chosen to hold harmless. So there is 1 year already that we have voted on, all of us, to do nothing, basically. Then there are 2 additional years. So D is 3 total years. E is 4 total years. Now I'm going to make the argument for E. If you choose scenario D, it's in dollar cents, $2.2 million spread over 6 LEAs. $2.2 million spread over 6 LEAs. So that will impact some teachers and services. If you vote for E, it's $765,000 spread over 4 LEAs. So it's significantly less impact to individual schools. So hopefully that information is helpful. I'm going to vote for both, whichever one comes up first is passing. Great. I think both are good options. They both provide rollout time for schools. But, you know, there's pros and cons on both ends, all things considered.
Okay. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger and then Member Earl.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, through you to Deputy Superintendent Jones, just to clarify, as I'm looking at these scenario charts that are broken down by all of the specific charter schools, my understanding is that this doesn't impact funding for all of the charter schools, just the charter schools who have been receiving additional funding for students that they do not have. Is that a correct understanding? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, it was read now, so yes.
Okay, Member Earl.
Oh yeah, here it is again. So I just want to make sure I understand this and I know you've said that we probably have said this like 5 times, but fiscal year 2026, which started in July. Am I accurate in saying that? So we're holding harmless, which is a true statement, but in some ways we found this out after budgets were already set. Is that accurate? So when we say holding harmless, we're not technically holding harmless, other than we could say, oh, we're going to take all the money that you budgeted this year already. I mean, technically we could say that because there's an error in the system. So in some ways, I don't really consider this year hold harmless. I consider this year a find a solution year. And then the next year, when we say hold harmless, we're just saying it's spread out a little further before we get back completely on track. But it's not a hold harmless in that you're getting the same amount you got this year. Is that an accurate statement? Yeah, I am looking at the chart myself, but yeah. Yes. Yep.
And who's speaking here, Scott or Dale? Dale, go ahead.
Dale Frost, Minimum School Program Administrator. Yeah, if you can go to page we want to go. Is this the slideshow? Who's driving? Sorry. Continue down. Okay. Sorry. We want to go to the one that says sped out on ratio cap scenarios. I have it on page 28 of 57. 28. No, go to the presentation. Yep.
I think it's 14 maybe, if it's scenario E.
Thank you. I don't know if you can make that any bigger, but so if you see here, um, as Chair Davis was talking about, looking specifically at next year, if you can scroll to the right, well, yeah,
next year,
27, yeah. If you can, sorry, you can't see the scenarios when you zoom in that far. Can you go to presentation mode? It's the little arrow on the right. There we go. Thank you. So scenario D would result in next year, because you have to think about LEA's planning for budgets right now, that 6 LEAs would have to absorb 2.2 million in cuts to their special education budgets. The largest would be a 22.5% cut. So it gives them essentially 1 year, next year, to fully plan for the reductions. E would be that 3-year phase in, giving them 2 years to fully plan for them, and that would be the 765,000 cut next year, 27. And 4 LEAs would absorb those, and the biggest cut would be 13.6%. When we met with folks, there would be likely some reductions in force under scenario D. There would be very few under scenario E next year. There would be quite a few under scenario C, which is why we didn't recommend that one. I hope that answers the question. Happy to answer other questions.
Thank you.
Okay, let's jump back to the motion and continue on here. So the motion is to amend the rule that the board incorporate scenario D into draft 2. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Hall? Oh, is he? That passes 9 opposed, 5 in favor. Those in favor being Member Reel, Member Lear, Member Davis, Member Kelly, and Member Bollinger. Did I say that fails? It does fail. I said it passes. I know. It's like my brain is catching up to my mouth. That fails. 9 opposed, 5 in favor. I read those that are in favor. Apologies for that. This brings us back to the underlying motion, and that is that the board approves R277-479, funding for charter school students with disabilities on an IEP, draft 2, second and final reading. Seeing no additional lights, let's go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously with 1 absent. Back to you, Chair Davis.
Thank you. This is item 5.3. The committee moves that the board studies and supports the current grant application process. This is for USDB. Maybe I'll read it really quickly so people know. It's that the superintendent board sections in USDB may adopt their own respective internal policies as needed, so long as they don't conflict with board policies, board administrative rule, or federal and state law, as part of the overall internal control system for financial control and management of funds by USBE staff and systems.
So this motion came out of committee. There's no action, as far as I understand, for the board, because the motion was from committee was to say, yeah, we agree with this. There was no changes, or we're just understanding a process, and the motion was to encourage board members to study the process. If changes want to be made in any of the process, that would come back before us. Is that correct, Chair Davis? Or did I miss something? We're on 5.3.
Yes, you're right. I don't know why that USDB part got put in my, unless I'm missing a piece. But yes, that is correct.
With that, let's move to 5.4, if you're okay with that.
Okay, we did take an action, I believe. That was an action, so I do think the action is that the board studies and supports the current grant application process. Do you have that different in your notes?
No, I have it. That's what came out of committee, and that was what we, as a committee, we said,
We don't need a motion because
is
we're
good.
supporting what we had already.
yeah,
Got it.
it's already there.
That's-
There's nothing.
That's right. Okay. 5.4 is the committee moves that the board approve the integrated mathematics research proposal into the final UDRC annual research agenda request.
Thank you. The motion is that the board approve the integrated mathematics research proposal into the final UDRC annual research agenda request. I've got member Earl, and then she's going to make I believe you're going to make a motion. Is that correct? And do you have a question before she makes a motion? I'm not trying to play here, but did you have a? Okay, perfect. Member Earl, go ahead.
I'd like to make a substitute motion, and I would like to substitute the current research recommendation for 2 other ones. And I think, Jen, do you have that? Or someone has it? Okay, that this, we can put in as many as we want. There was a question around, I think we've submitted 3 or 4 years before. We can put in several. So it would be 1, I put this study. I don't know if that makes sense, but this study reviews the relationship between high school math and English courses and higher education courses with 3 questions. What is the relationship between high school preparation and course success failure rates in higher education? How do high school grades and courses influence students' preparedness and likelihood of it succeeding in college level courses? And 3, what implications do these findings have for intervention strategies in higher education and in high school courses? That's 1. And then 2 would be the study. This study examines a cohort of students who participate in preschool initiatives, including online instruction and specialized intervention programs, to identify key factors that contribute to sustained academic success. And then underneath that, the questions would be, I don't have those as questions, to examine the long-term effects of participation in preschool initiatives and specialized intervention programs on academic achievement, to identify key factors that influence sustained academic success from early childhood through intermediate grades, and to assess the relationship between early educational experiences, reading on grade level, and RICE test scores in the elementary grades.
The motion has been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second. Back to you, Member Earl.
Yes, just looking at the research proposal we had was, to me, it was this tradition versus integrated. And almost each piece in that, it seemed to be the research we would have in the state of Utah on traditional math practices would date back prior to the Common Core era. So I'm concerned that there may not be the ability to accurately weigh that, but to actually, the reason why I submitted this the way I did is so that we could look at math courses as well as English courses and see where where the correlation is there. And then once again, I just think preschool initiatives, we have a lot of initiatives. Are they actually producing what we want? Some of those are online. We're putting a lot into a lot of these programs, millions and millions of dollars. It would be good to know if they're, they're leading to the outcomes that they're professing, or if, what that is. So those are my recommendations. And of course, I know that we recommend things, Workforce Service recommends things, Higher Ed recommends things. Sometimes they'll pick ours up, sometimes they won't. I mean, I don't know what their process is. They, evaluate that, the actual research entities. So these aren't necessarily guaranteed, but I think these are pressing items. So thank you.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Judge. So I just want to make sure I understand. So instead of doing the integrated mathematics, we would switch to these 2 proposals. And again, they're proposals, so we don't know for sure if they're even going to happen. And do we know a timeline if they do get accepted of how long these take, or is it just up to them?
I think it's up to them, but I don't know. I think they pick by summer. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Does anybody? Yeah, Aaron Bruff here maybe can speak to that. I think they pick by summer, and then it's that following year that they begin the research and roll it out, because they're funded every year for a certain amount of projects, or money for projects.
I think we're good, Darren. That's okay. Just
Aaron.
Aaron, sorry, Aaron. I know your name. Well, just hang there in case we have other questions. Thank you. Member says, okay. Member Davis.
Oh, my question was just, I should have asked this when we were talking earlier. I just said, but didn't we vote last month on another research?
It's not a research project.
Sorry.
Something that's going to take 5 months, or an RFA to get someone for 5 months or up to 5 months to study math.
It's looking at our draft standards. They're going to go.
Oh, just
through the-
specific. That's right.
Yeah,
That's what
it's-
it was. Thank you.
I've got Member Brenton.
Chair, can I ask a question to the maker of the motion? I just wanted to clarify, because as I understand it, integrated math has already had some studies done. Didn't Nate Ock lead some kind of study that presented research? And as we've asked for clarity in like just adding traditional math as an option for LEAs to choose, anyway, we've not been met with much help there.
Sure. Jenny.
Yeah, I remember something from a few months ago that was a few years old. I was unable to locate it, so I do think there was some things presented at different meetings, but I could not nail it down. And my apologies. If I find it, I can pass it on to the board, because I believe there was some narratives around that.
Okay. Member Longacre.
Yeah, just a question. What pot of money is this research coming from? Is this our money, like USBE money?
Who wants to take that? Aaron, you.
I'm happy to take it. So UDRC has direct funding that's coming from the state. So it's not our money. We actually do get a portion, if you will, a pot that supplies services that we do, but they're self-sustained. There's the word. So it's no additional money at the moment. There is limitation on if we give them like 1,000, they can't do 1,000, but they're self-sustained right now with state funding.
Okay, thank you.
Member Carey.
Just for the maker of the motion, I'm just trying to understand point number 1, review the relationship between high school math and English courses and higher education courses. Can you just help me better understand directionally what we're trying to ascertain from that?
And I think the key points are underneath there, but it's looking at those courses and then looking at the success of those students that have taken certain courses in college themselves, and seeing if there's a correlation, or if there's certain courses or English courses in our high school math, is it leading to success in the English courses within higher ed?
I see. So when it says in I'm sorry, Chair. When it says higher education courses, are you referring to higher education courses in English?
English and math. I guess it could be. We could.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's what the intent was: is to look at are we preparing students for the success here?
And that makes sense. And Chair, one other question, if I may. And this is point 2. First bullet point, to examine the long-term effects of participation in preschool initiatives and specialized intervention programs. Are there specific specialized intervention programs that you're thinking of, or is it just that whole area of special? Because there's lots. So are there specific programs?
I guess I left it broad because there are a number of programs that we have, and I don't know what workforce services, I don't know what people have access to when it comes to data to measure those. But I know there's a lot of specialized intervention services, some of those for our students with special needs, others for maybe students who are delayed speech or otherwise. So I did leave it broad on purpose, but if you wanted to narrow the scope, we could. I just didn't know all of them. I just know we have a lot out there, and to look at where they had the data to actually do the measurement. But I wanted to leave it to them.
Chair, if I may, and this may not be for the maker of the motion, but just in general, should it be left as broadly as it is currently worded? Who would make the determination of which specialized intervention programs are examined pursuant to this proposal, or is it your intention that all of them would be?
I left it broad. I don't know the resources. I don't know, right?
Okay.
Just because we we suggest something and then they actually narrowly they define it and put it in. But this helps to give some direction as to what we might
So
be
the
interested
committee
in.
would have a voice in that determination.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Brenton.
Motion. I just have one more question. I wonder if we could have something a little more narrowed down that looks at the rate of remedial math classes in our universities over the last 15 years compared to before when we were on a traditional math track, since integrated and Common Core have come in. Because as I understand it, at least from talking to Utah Tech's math department, those classes have shot up exponentially over the last 15 years. So I would like to compare that. Is that?
So you suggesting maybe adding a bullet point related to remedial coursework?
Yes.
Okay.
And the rise in
I
that,
would
yeah,
be fine
could we
with that.
see?
If you wanted to make, do you want to make that motion or do you want me to?
Yeah, we'd need a motion for us. So
So is that a substitute or an amendment?
It'd be an amendment.
Okay, I'll make an amendment motion that we add in a bullet point to look at the number of remedial math classes in our universities across Utah over the last, what would it be, the last 15 years, how they've changed? Or the last 30? Okay. Okay, that's true. Yeah, the last 30 years.
So that's Moober. It's changed, darn it. Okay. I supported it before that. Add a bullet point. So the motion to amend is to add a bullet point to look at the number of remedial classes in the last 30 years to see how they have changed. Is that correct, Member
Yes.
Brenton? Do we have a second? Okay, let's.
Colleges and universities in Utah. And should it be comparing to other states or should we just keep it focused on Utah? Because as I understand it, we have held on to integrated where we're only one of 3 or 4 states that does that. The rest allow dual paths.
I think I would leave it broader,
Just you.
but that's just me.
Okay.
Because I don't know what they're going to pick up in the first place, but trying to get the gist of where we're going to go, what we'd like them to do.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. Remember, Brenton, we're like in the middle of a motion here. I know
Okay,
you're getting
sorry.
help with this motion. No, I'm not seeking an apology. I just want to make sure that we got it right here.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so the motion then is to amend and add a bullet point to number 1 to look at the participation of colleges and universities' remedial mathematics classes in the last 30 years to analyze how they have changed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Back to you, Member Brenton.
I think I spoke to it. Wait.
Okay, I've got, okay. So, I know, Aaron, you have a light on. I don't know if you're relevant to this motion. I don't have any questions though, so I'm gonna, okay, Vice Chair Wood, ask your question, please.
Well, it's somewhat related to this motion because it is one of the questions in the primary research that was dictated out. How has the transition to integrated math led to a statistically significant decrease in remedial math placement at USBE institutions? My question related to this whole thing is, you brought us a very specific research plan, and you were asked, the question was, does this board approve this plan? This has completely substituted out completely new questions. Does this dictate you having to go and redo another plan and bring that plan to us again? Is this undoing the work that you were ready to finalize, send on? Is there a deadline?
Aaron, please.
Aaron Bruff, Director of Data and Statistics. It never undoes work. We always do work, but it does make us go back and redefine, make sure the requests of the board aligns with a proper study that can be completed. If that answers the question, the deadline or timing that we're trying to get this in before is April. So there's time to go back and refine this. So we're okay on that part. Again, just sharing the process is we, USBE, with the other agencies, share our research agenda with the UDRC group. Then the UDRC group does meet with its governance board, and then that's the process where they go through and they define out, okay, what are the priorities? And well, I have one more item, but only if you let me.
So did you bring this plan to us because through our request? We made a request for this plan and you brought this final plan to us?
We brainstormed as a group of individuals, of your staff, to present to the finance committee saying, this is what we're thinking.
Got it.
We wish we had a time machine, again, to get this answered earlier, but that's how we presented it and then left it open for discussion.
For
There's other
changes.
items
Okay.
to add.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Seeing an additional light, Member Green.
I'm just reading through the initial draft. My question is actually where it says problem statement and significance, where it says understand if the integrated curriculum is achieving its intended goal of creating college and career ready students compared to the historical traditional sequence. I'm just wondering where that information comes from. And that is for whatever staff might be able to answer that question for me. So if they already have that information, the historical traditional sequence, versus, I just want to know where that's going to come from.
So I'm not sure because we don't have, Aaron, you might be able to answer this. We just don't have, I don't know if this is going towards like a math expert or go ahead. What's that?
Did he hear my question?
Yeah, and if you need it repeated, then okay, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I should have waited. I know there's a lot going on. I'm just wondering, it's on the problem statement and significance part of the proposal, where it says, help the Utah State Board of Education understand that the integrated curriculum is achieving its intended goal of creating college and career ready students compared to the historical traditional sequence. That to me, it sounds like you have the data for the historical traditional sequence right now. Is that correct? And if so, then you're going to take that pot of information that you have already and lay it against the 2013 era. Go ahead.
And so to respond to that question is, there are a couple approaches that we look at. One, we do a literacy review. When I say we, the UDRC would do a literacy review where they look at all the documentation that we can find of other studies and compile that. That's the first step that they do. Second is we would do a comparison between pre and post of the adoption of that integrated math. So we do go back to about 2006 onward to about 2000, I'm going to say it's 12 when we had that transition. We have that data and that information in the course taking patterns that we would do a comparison between the two and compare that to see if our patterns, and again, to be slightly technical, doing what's called compensity score matching, where you say likes compared to likes, are we seeing the same outcomes? Is it even comparable? We would go in there, that would be the job of the UDRC to actually review that to say, are these comparable enough that we say the outcomes are then within the research behind it, is this, can we see actually an impact or an effect? And so again, the complexity behind it is, yes, we do have the data. They'd be looking at it, they'd be going back but we'd also be looking at other states and seeing what their studies are also producing and see if we could replicate similar patterns.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, to Director Bruff, just to help me understand. So my understanding is this research proposal that's in backup that's come to us went through the Finance Committee, but came from the committee can you help us understand the process of that? Because I'm trying to just figure out, now are we substituting two different studies for something that people have done an extensive amount of deciding that this was the study that we needed to with the specifics, including this concern that Member Britton has on how that's impacting remedial mathematics?
You bet. We have not done extensive research on the initial research question we gave you. We just did if you will, the bare minimum of a group, and we call it the Center of of excellence from different departments come together, and we talk about the research and items that seem to be percolating to the top of interest that the board is interested on, because mathematic standards were presented. We're like, we can't even answer this one right now. So that's where it came from. Again, presenting that to the finance committee as a proposal of an option. Again, it's totally open to the board saying, what do we want to study? What do you as a body think is the most important elements that we want to move forward to the UDRC group? So we haven't done a lot of work, just that preliminary kind of put the ideas together, kind of refine them. Looking at what was presented right now as the amendment, we would look at the same thing and say, okay, do we have all the components that we need, and can we do this? And we maybe even come back to the board saying this looks great, or we would forward it directly to the UDRC group. It's a flexible approach.
Thank you. Board members, we have kind of drifted away from the motion before us, and so I'd like to refocus on the motion at hand, and that is to amend this list here to add a bullet point to number 1 to look at the participation of colleges and universities' remedial mathematics classes in the last 30 years to analyze how they have changed. Member Earl, is this to the amendment? Okay. No additional questions for this amendment. Let's go ahead and vote. There it is. That passes unanimously with 1 absent. So now we are working on the main motion as amended. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger, then Member Earl, and then Superintendent Hart is in there as well.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, I think my question, if I could direct it to Chair Davis from the Finance Committee, because I'm trying to understand. So if this came through the Finance Committee, were there discussions about any other studies, or did the Finance Committee feel like this is the direction that they wanted to go?
Other members can speak if they felt differently, but they felt that it was timely because we're talking about math standards at this time. It wouldn't be done prior to us choosing and moving forward with math standards, but it could be helpful for tweaks as we sort of launch into something new if we do. But we didn't consider other proposals, but others have been, I think, sent in this year or in past years. In past years, we have submitted others. The most recent one that we just got back was the charter school and district school graduation rates for college, who gets done faster, who makes more money when they get out, those types of things. So this is a new one.
Member Earl.
Yeah, it's making it, I think there's some narrative out there that there's been extensive research and that the committee, right, all these things. I don't think that's the case. I do think that we have thoughtful staff that have said, hey, what are some things bubbling up? So this idea that there's we've committed all this time and we've written this up and there's all this back stuff, I don't think that's the case. This is the board's, these are recommendations, and I think it's thoughtful. That's why I took those recommendations, because I'm like, I want to know, quite honestly, I want to know if we've got some problems in the English area too. And so creating a little broader picture, and one that's going to inform us. I don't want in 6 months or a year, someone come back and go, oh, now you got to do this. Now you got to do this, right? I want to know what's going on right now. And I'm concerned that even though we can research back 16, 20 years before we switch to an integrated approach, I'm worried personally about the comparison of data being accurate or reflective of an accurate representation, right? So I want to know where we're at. I want to know how we can move forward. I want to know how we can be productive. That's why I'm submitting this. And so I think it was thoughtful. There was thoughtful engagement in committee, but I don't think it's this idea. We've got to stick with that. I think it allows the board to make those decisions. We've done this before where we've taken what the staff have brought forward And then we've said, well, how do we want this to look moving forward? There, we have a number of recommendations that are sitting ready to go into a research item prioritized on with this group. And so they're still sitting there, right? So it couldn't be, it's probably not even next year. Most likely it would be next year, the prioritized ones, but not the ones we're submitting. Those would probably be 2 years out. So it's not really timely. It's a few years after the fact. So anyways, thank you.
I've got Superintendent Hart. Do you still want to?
I would like to say, first of all, we can make more than one recommendation. Second of all, all these things are extremely valuable pieces of information. For one, we're spending a lot of money, and we just had an audit on CTE. We're spending a lot of money in First Credential. We're spending a lot of money in Catalyst Centers, and we're really looking at that high school to college transition, and that information will be extremely valuable. The information on the other end about preschool, we're spending a lot of money in early literacy. And are we, there's some questions there about, we're not interested in teaching, 3-year-olds, sitting them down in a classroom and making them read novels. But there are readiness activities for young children in preschool age, and we do know that it is prudent to catch issues early, early intervention. So that's a very timely issue. And then the math issue, yeah, it would be after we make decisions in math, but at the same time, we are overdue for a math initiative similar to the early literacy initiative. And that's something that this board is going to need to think about. We are looking at our reading scores have made a big splash, for better or for worse, the narratives that are out there. But right in its shadow is mathematics, and we need to get on that. So I don't think that there is anything wrong with multiple recommendations, and I do think that these 3 areas would inform this board's work moving forward in a very meaningful way. So just wanted to offer those thoughts.
Go ahead, Member Carey.
Yeah, the superintendent mentioned these 3 areas. I only see the 2. What's the third? Just help me understand.
It would substitute the 3 areas that the committee.
What I heard you kind of wrestling with is this is a substitute motion for the one that already existed. I'm offering that perhaps you don't have to make a choice between what was originally recommended and then these 2. I'm saying that there's room for all of them, and so it wouldn't necessarily substitute, it could augment.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
We don't do participation trophies here.
I
agree. Member Longacre.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be quick. If I can quote you, Chair, in the Finance Committee meeting, along so many words, you said that what will this study, how will this study change what we're doing right now? We're working on a traditional pathway so districts can choose. I don't know what we would find in this study that would change what we're doing. And if we go out into our communities and ask our constituents, what study would you like to, have us spend our time and money on? I don't think it would be this. If we're going along math, I would like to do a study on the implications of doing math on a Chromebook. I mean, there are so many better, useful studies that we can do than comparing integrated to traditional.
All right. I'm pausing because I'm about to read this motion. So get it out. And we're cutting into Chair Carey's time here. We're 4 minutes behind schedule. And okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna read this. Are we ready? We're getting ready for a motion here. Remember, Carrie, pull your hand back. When I see you reach, I get nervous. Yeah, stay away from that button. Okay. The substitute motion is that the board recommends that this study, 1, review the relationship between high school math and English courses and higher education courses. With these 4 questions. What is the relationship between high school preparation and course success failure rates in higher education? How do high school grades and courses influence students' preparedness and likelihood of succeeding in college level courses? What implications do these findings have for intervention strategies in higher education and in high school courses? Look at the participation of colleges and universities' remedial mathematics classes in the last 30 years to analyze how they have changed. 2, examine a cohort of students who participate in preschool initiatives, including online instruction and specialized intervention programs, to identify key factors that contribute to sustained academic success, with these 3 bullets underneath. To examine the long-term effects of participation in preschool initiatives and specialized intervention programs on academic achievement. To identify key factors that influence sustained academic success from early childhood through intermediate grades. To assess the relationship between early educational experiences, reading on grade level, and RISE test scores in elementary grades. Is that the final bullet? Can we scroll just to make sure that we have just the 3? Okay. With that, let's vote. That passes 10 in favor, 2 abstentions, 1 no vote. The abstentions coming from Member Bogus and Member Green, the no vote coming from Member Hymas. So that brings us to our underlying motion, which has been changed, and I'm going to read it, and it should fit here. I'm going to read that the motion is that the board approve the research proposal into the final UDRC annual research agenda request. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Hold on, pause for a second. Essentially, board members, as we're getting this correct, it's the same vote that we just took. It was a substitute, so we're good? Okay, scratch that. Back to you, Chair Davis.
I'm done. Done. Thank you.
You're done. Perfect. Okay.